We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. How's it going, everybody? We are hopping into yet another Best Ball Mania 3 draft, and it looks like it is about to get started. Going to be trying to answer all the questions I can get to on this live stream as well. It feels like the first day of the season today. I don't know about all of you, but the training camp videos are starting to hit the timeline. So it's a very, very exciting time in the NFL. Let me pull up the draft board for those of you watching live on TikTok. Make sure you hit that follow button, by the way, for football content all season long. All right. And the draft's about to begin. What pick did we get? We got the 7th overall pick. 7th overall pick in this draft. We are live on TikTok and YouTube right now. What's going on, guys, in the YouTube chat? What's going on in the TikTok chat? What round you in? The draft hasn't started yet. This is a $25 real best ball draft over an underdog, and the draft literally just started. You can see it behind me. You can also see it shared on my YouTube live screen as well at Walterpicks over on YouTube. We're up in 3 picks. We have the 7th overall pick in this draft. The 7th overall pick, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson are off the board. The 7th pick is pretty tough. I would argue these are the top 4 players that should be drafted in every fantasy league, and I didn't expect any of them to fall to me at 7. But if they do fall to you at 5, 6, 7, I think it's actually a pretty easy selection to make in your fantasy draft. Jamar Chase gone, and I really think I'll be deciding between these 2 guys, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry. This is a half PPR format, so I will lean towards Austin Eckler, though I don't feel great about passing on the big dog, the king himself, Derrick Henry, who is the first player in NFL history, going back over 150 years of NFL football, first player ever to average over 100 rushing yards per game in 3 consecutive seasons. He's going to do it again this season. The question is, for how long can he do it? And he's starting to fall down draft boards for that exact reason. We just see Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook taken ahead of him in this draft. We're doing live right now. Again, you can see the picks happening behind me, but also if you come to the YouTube live, you can see the picks, the draft board happening live. Let's go. My last hour of work will be Sam drafting. What's your opinion on Josh Jacobs this year? I'm a little down, honestly, on Josh Jacobs. I think he's okay, but I don't think he has the league-winning upside in fantasy because of his lack of receiving production. I don't think he's shown that he's going to be a big receiver out of the backfield through his first years in the league. That being said, I'm bullish on the Raiders offense in general. So I do think that he could score more touchdowns this season. But Josh McDaniels is the OC there now. I won't be shocked if they run a Patriots-like running back system where Josh Jacobs is only getting the Damian Harris role. And in that role, you need to score so many touchdowns to really produce in fantasy. So I'm kind of out on Josh Jacobs, but his cost really isn't that bad. It's not like he's getting picked even in the 3rd round. He's going like 4th, sometimes 5th round in drafts so far. How many drafts are you even doing for the $2 million prize? Isn't this like the 5th one? Logan, this is actually the 85th one. I'm going to be doing 150 of these. I'll be max entering the Best Ball Mania 3, just like I max entered the Best Ball Mania 1 and 2 last year. So yeah, I'll do 150 of these total, but they won't all be broadcasted on YouTube. Good question, Logan. All right, we're about to be back on the clock. Mark Andrews gets snagged 1 pick before us. I do really like DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon in the 2nd round. I like Javonte Williams a lot too, but I don't think I would take Javonte Williams over Aaron Jones, and I don't think I would take him over Saquon Barkley either. I've drafted a lot of Saquon Barkley. I've certainly taken him over Aaron Jones a decent number of times, but I'm going to go with Aaron Jones instead here. I have 2 guys that could easily finish top 5 in receiving yards now at the running back position. And those are the running backs I want. I want running backs that catch passes. So I'm feeling pretty good about my start. 7th overall, I snagged Austin Eckler round 1, Aaron Jones round 2. Saquon Barkley is an absolute steal in the 9th pick of the 2nd round. I mean, I really hope he slides in my season-long drafts. I have my first high-stakes season-long draft coming up next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. So I got to start to shift my mindset from best ball to season-long. Don't draft Saquon. I don't draft scared. I refuse to draft scared. So I'm going to draft Saquon. I'm going to draft Saquon. I'm going to draft Christian McCaffrey. I'm trying to win championships. I'm not trying to lose. I'm not worried about losing. If you're not first, you're last. That's why I'm drafting Saquon Barkley. It's why I'm drafting Christian McCaffrey. Would you take Hurts or Lamar? Yeah, I'm definitely taking Lamar over Jalen Hurts for sure. Lamar Jackson, though, going like a full 2 rounds before Jalen Hurts in most drafts. Someone asked earlier, I think on the TikTok live, what my thoughts on Nick Chubb were. I'm happy to get Nick Chubb where he's being drafted. I think he's priced in pretty well right now for how talented Nick Chubb is, for how good the Browns offensive line is. I think late second round, he was just taken in the last pick of the second round in this draft. You're stacking JT or CMC with Nick Chubb. That's a pretty good start to a draft. And there's definitely a big drop off in running back from Nick Chubb to the rest of the running backs in the draft. James Conner, not on the level of Nick Chubb talent-wise. Alvin Kamara, he probably is, but he's likely facing a 6-game suspension. Travis Etienne is not in the same conversation as Nick Chubb in terms of just known talent. So I think there's a pretty big drop-off. If you're getting Nick Chubb end of the second round, beginning of the third, you should feel pretty good about that, in my opinion. We are 5 picks away. I started this draft, Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones. Feeling pretty good about getting receiving running backs. But a lot of receivers starting to fly off the board. I'll probably look to go with one of these 4 guys. I actually will strongly consider Kyle Pitts with the 7th pick in the 3rd round. I've been taking him there a lot this whole offseason. But I would take T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore ahead of Kyle Pitts, especially because I started 2 running backs. Josh Allen, by the way, in these drafts that I'm doing now, this is a $25 best ball draft over on Underdog Fantasy. Josh Allen's really starting to slide pretty far in some of these drafts, like late 3rd round, early 4th round. I don't think that's what's going to happen in people's like traditionally season-long leagues. I'll happily take T. Higgins in the 3rd round here, 7 picks after his average draft position. But Josh Allen in the middle of the 3rd round, that's actually decent value. Josh Allen is sort of head and shoulders ahead of all the other quarterbacks. I don't like being the first guy to take a quarterback, though, all that being said. So I don't have very much Josh Allen, but like middle of the 3rd round, back into the 3rd round is when I'll start to consider taking Josh Allen. I mean, Justin Herbert went 2 picks later than Josh Allen in this draft. So that makes the Josh Allen pick definitely look a lot better in this one. All right, let's get back to some of the comments. How much do you use Walter when you are drafting? Nick, I look at the Walter projections, rankings, literally every single day. So I don't actually need to use it as profusely as some of our Walterpicks subscribers might. But I'm looking at it constantly, man. I'm looking at it literally all day. I'm in drafts constantly. I want to know what Walter thinks about each one of my picks. So yeah, I'm definitely using it. And we just launched League Sync in the Walterpicks app, which is absolutely massive. If you guys haven't checked out the app yet, definitely check it out. I've been building it over the last 2 years of my life. I've been full-time working on it for the last year. It's been a lot of fun. And we just launched League Sync capabilities. So you're going to be able to sync your leagues to Sleeper, to ESPN, to Yahoo, to our draft tool. And it's going to update live during the draft. So you don't need to enter what picks are being made anymore. It's just going to know what picks have been made, what players are on your team, what positions you still need based on your custom league settings, and also based on your custom scoring settings and roster settings. It knows everything about your league to give you the best possible custom insight. It really is first of its kind in a mobile app. I'm super excited to be launching it. So definitely check it out if you haven't yet. But that doesn't work with Underdog Fantasy. So I'm not synced at the moment because this draft is on Underdog, not Sleeper, ESPN, or Yahoo. But I definitely will be using it for all of my season-long drafts. And it will work in our Trade Analyzer start sit tool throughout the season as well. Is Josh Allen a good pick in the 1st round if I'm playing 2 QB, not Superflex, and have Kupp and Debo as keepers? Yeah. If you're playing 2 QB, that's even more heavy towards quarterbacks than Superflex is. So yes, Josh Allen honestly should be considered with the 101 overall pick in a 2-quarterback league. So yeah, I would definitely be happy keeping Josh Allen. If you can start 2 quarterbacks in your league, it completely shifts the value of quarterback all the way to the front of the line, because usually there's 10 or 12 people in a league and people are going to draft more than 2 quarterbacks with that format. And there's only 32 starting quarterbacks every week. And they score by far way more points, even the worst guys, than most other positions. Like even Carson Wentz is scoring at least 15 points a week in most weeks. And that's better than most other positions. So yeah, draft Josh Allen in 2 QB leagues, 100%. Kyle Pitts gets snagged 1 pick. one pick before me, I definitely was going to take him if he was still there in the 4th round. And in the drafts that he slides, he's going to be an absolute steal for people. I'm back on the clock. I don't really love what I'm looking at here in terms of receivers. Marquise Brown did pick up an injury today. I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Waddle. I'm actually going to go with what I would argue is the safest play, and that's Terry McLaurin. I feel like I haven't drafted him very much either in a lot of these drafts that I've done. I usually would have taken Jalen Waddle there. I think in season long, maybe I would have leaned Waddle, but I don't like taking number 2 receivers on teams ahead of number 1 receivers on teams. And I also think the running backs will be very involved in Miami. Draft Breece Hall or Travis Etienne? Yeah, this is a question I'm getting a lot. I would argue that you really need to be targeting Breece Hall over Etienne just slightly. Because of the James Robinson news, I do think that alters things just a little bit. I think that alters things at least a little bit in favor of Breece Hall. Breece Hall is going to get about 65% of the work in New York, regardless of what Michael Carter's status is. But if James Robinson is healthy, Travis Etienne is going to potentially only get like a third of the carries, maybe a half at best of the carries, definitely not more than half with a healthy James Robinson. He'll still be very involved in the passing game. I still really like both. In the third or fourth round in season-long leagues, in 12-people leagues, I'm going with Breece Hall. I'm going with Travis Etienne because I know how good these guys are as pass catchers, and I'm playing in mostly PPR or half PPR formats. So yeah, I want Breece Hall. Breece Hall set the record for the most games in a row with a touchdown in college. The dude is a touchdown machine. I know the Jets aren't the best landing spot for him in fantasy. The offense isn't that exciting. The offensive line is probably still bottom 10 in the NFL. But we saw this with Saquon Barkley in his rookie year. Saquon Barkley is my comp for Breece Hall. They're very similar in a lot of ways. Extremely athletic, extremely talented in the open field, except Breece Hall just doesn't have the injury history that Saquon has. He's going 2 rounds later. So yeah, I like Breece Hall. I think we can see Breece Hall be a top 10 running back in fantasy in his first year. I think it's more likely for him than Travis Etienne, but I think Etienne has a path to it too. Because if James Robinson is a little bit slower to recover from his Achilles injury, which historically has been really hard to recover from, Cam Akers has sort of changed the game from in Achilles injuries. He came back in the same season that he tore his Achilles injury in, which was absolutely unheard of. Usually it's a full year recovery, and then still guys are usually like a little bit worse when they come back. But if he's slower to come back, and Travis Etienne has the first month of the season to get the bulk of the carries and all of the targets, he's going to be close to top 10 running back in PPR leagues because he's going to catch so many passes. He is definitely in there in consideration for top 5 in receiving yards per game at the running back position this season. That's how much he's going to be used in the passing game in Jacksonville. So yeah, I'm very bullish on Travis Etienne. What is best ball? Best ball is a format of fantasy where all you do is the draft. There's no in-season management. There's no starting or sitting players. There's no trading players. There's no adding or dropping players. Your best lineup is automatically submitted for you at the end of each week. That's why it's called best ball. And draft big rosters because you can't add, drop players, and obviously injuries are going to happen. The most important thing, if you're trying to be successful in best ball, is actually roster construction. There's 18 rounds. I've done a lot of analysis on this. The best, just generally speaking, optimal roster construction you can have is 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 8 receivers, and 3 tight ends. You can differ slightly from that roster construction depending on the players you draft. Like if you draft Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson early, like you definitely don't need 3 quarterbacks. Or if you draft a really good tight end early, you don't need 3 tight ends. You could probably be fine with 2 tight ends. I'm back on the clock here. I'm actually going to go with Rashad Bateman with this pick. Taking him ahead of DK Metcalf. I'm taking him ahead of Juju and Darnell Mooney. And all 3 of those guys, I don't feel amazing drafting Rashad Bateman over. But I also really, really like the ceiling for Rashad Bateman this season as the number 1 for Lamar Jackson. And I understand the criticism of Rashad Bateman in fantasy. I understand the concerns. It's Lamar Jackson's a rushing QB. This team's probably going to lead the league in rushing attempts, almost definitely going to lead the league in rushing attempts based on everything we're seeing from the Baltimore Ravens this offseason. But I think that a really good counter argument to that is, they were a top 5 run heavy team last season. Marquise Brown was top 10 in the league in targets, and he's gone. We've already seen a receiver who has seen extreme target volume with Lamar Jackson, and he's not on the team anymore. And the guy taking over for him, Marquise Brown was 9th in targets last year. He averaged 9 targets a game. If Rashad Bateman is even at 7 or 8 targets a game, he's worth a 4th, 5th round pick in fantasy. And if he gets to 9 targets a game, he's going to be up there in fantasy points per game. I mean, Marquise Brown was better in fantasy than I think people realized last year. He finished pretty weak. He had under 10 points in like his last 5 games, but he started the season extremely hot. People do not remember he had at least 19 points in 4 of his first 5 games last year. And then we had the Lamar Jackson injury shortly after that. Like, this is a healthy Lamar Jackson throwing to pretty obviously the number 1 receiver after Mark Andrews. I mean, that receiver depth chart is an absolute joke. It is Devin Duvernay catching passes after Rashad Bateman. So I got a lot of confidence in him in fantasy. And I just like, on my team so far, I've started Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Rashad Bateman. I like that I have 3 clear wide receiver, 2 clear wide receiver ones on their team. T. Higgins, obviously not the clear wide receiver 1 on his team, but he's in obviously a little bit different of a category than the rest of the receivers on that offense. All right, let's get back to some of the comments as I'm waiting to be up. Should I get CMC 102 or someone else? Yeah, I'm fully on board the draft CMC with a 2nd overall pick train. I'm on CMC. I think you should consider him at 1 overall. If you are actually truly understand what he can be, you should consider him at 1 overall. I'm not going to take him 1 overall, most likely in most of my drafts, unless I'm really trying to make a statement. I'm going to be taking Jonathan Taylor, but I'm definitely taking CMC 2 overall in all of my drafts. I've been on the CMC train for literally the entire offseason. He's fully healthy right now. Christian McCaffrey is entirely healthy. So if you aren't drafting Christian McCaffrey, then you are assuming that you have some superhuman ability to predict injuries, which you don't have that ability. We're actually horrible at predicting injuries, historically speaking. People did the same thing with Joe Mixon last year. Joe Mixon slid like late 2nd round in a lot of drafts last year because it was this thing. Everyone knew Joe Mixon got hurt and he played every single game last year. So there's so many examples. Most running backs get hurt, which is why people think they're so good at predicting injuries, but most running backs get hurt. So yeah, when you say CMC is going to get hurt this season, you are probably right, but you're probably right about all running backs when saying that. That's the thing people, I think, miss with this Christian McCaffrey injury analysis. So yeah, CMC, is he at a higher risk of injury? A little bit, sure. Is it that high that you don't want to take the guy that had the 2nd best fantasy football season of all time? Every single person that had CMC that season won their championship? No, it's not. The risk isn't that high. It's not higher than the reward. And it's just a risk-reward analysis. I think that's every pick in fantasy is a risk-reward analysis, including the CMC picks. So yeah, I'm taking CMC at 2 overall. I'm considering him at 1 overall, and he's not sliding to 3rd overall in a single draft that I'm in. I feel very strong about the CMC thing, and I'm going to be devastated when he gets hurt this season. But I'm not drafting scared. And Christian McCaffrey, he can average over 20 fantasy points per game, literally without scoring touchdowns. And there's no other running back like that in fantasy football. All right, we're going to be. I actually made a selection during that CMC rant. Sorry, I've been very passionate about the CMC thing all offseason, but there's also an internal civil war going on at Walterpicks about whether or not you should take Christian McCaffrey in the top 2. I'm firmly in, yes, you should take him 2nd overall, and he shouldn't slide to 3rd overall in any drafts that I'm in if I have a top 3 pick. But I did just make a pick in this draft that I'm in. I took Kyler Murray late in this draft, 6th round, middle of the 6th round, 2 picks before Joe Burrow, 2 picks after Russell Wilson, 4 picks after Jalen Hurts. I got Kyler Murray. I mean, he just slid really far in this draft. I mean, 6th round for a guy that definitely could finish top 3 fantasy points per game at the quarterback position. I know he is without DeAndre Hopkins for 6 weeks, but he did just add Hollywood Brown, who did actually get hurt right before training camp, which isn't great, but it's just a minor ankle injury. It sounds like he should definitely be on track for week 1. And Kyler's rushing ability is what I'm chasing in fantasy. I want quarterbacks that run the ball. I want Lamar Jackson. I want Jalen Hurts. I want Kyler Murray. I want Trey Lance. And I want Justin Fields. I want all those guys because those guys are the guys that have the archetype of QB that can come close to competing with a guy like Josh Allen. And that's why he's like far and away the best quarterback in fantasy. It's because of his rushing. He's obviously an elite passer also. He is both. But rushing scores more fantasy points than passing. That's just the bottom line. That's how the scoring works. So you got to go for the rushing QBs, in my opinion, especially when they slide like Kyler Murray did in this draft. I'm actually really liking the start I have to this draft so far, though I should probably start getting around back to the running back position sometime soon. DeAndre Hopkins gets snagged. I definitely would have taken him if he was still there because I did draft Kyler Murray. Thoughts on Sutton this year? I'm not sure he's worth the end of 3rd price tag. Yeah, let's see where he went in this draft really quickly. After I pick, I'll go back and make sure we see where he was picked in this draft. Tony Pollard going 6th pick, 7th round. Antonio Gibson is not practicing right now. You absolutely hate to see that if you're drafting right now. I don't want to go. We're going to go with Drake London over Antonio Gibson. If he was practicing right now, I would have gone Antonio Gibson, and he's probably going to be fine by the season. This is probably a little bit of an overreaction right now. But I just generally, I don't like drafting guys that aren't practicing. Like, I'm not going to not draft CMC because I'm scared he's going to get hurt. But if CMC was hurt right now, I would not be drafting him. Antonio Gibson, not practicing right now, I'm a lot less interested. Michael Thomas is practicing right now. Yeah, I'm very interested in Michael Thomas, who went in the 6th round in this draft, and I think that's an absolute steal. He went in the 6th round in this draft. I've been getting him in the 7th, 8th, 9th round of drafts I've been doing this offseason, and that's gonna change because he's back at practice, and now definitely we need to start moving Michael Thomas up draft boards. I mean, he is a top 24 wide receiver in fantasy easily. And he went off the board, I think, outside the top 30 in this draft. So, yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th round now with Michael Thomas. Like, I feel pretty good as Michael Thomas being my wide receiver 2 in season-long leagues heading into the year. He's practicing. Guys, he's going to be playing. He's healthy. Until he's hurt, I'll feel the same way about him as I do Christian McCaffrey, as I do Saquon Barkley. All these guys are trending towards full health. They're practicing. But if guys aren't on the practice field, that gets a lot more concerning. I think that gets a lot more concerning. That's when I'll start fading guys, is when they aren't practicing. So that's my general take on a lot of these guys. Someone asked a question about Courtland Sutton, and the price tag's definitely getting high. Yeah, he went mid to late 3rd in this draft. I mean, that is really high. It is really high. People are chasing the ceiling with Courtland Sutton. Now, I would far prefer, if you look at the difference in draft position in this draft, especially, I'm taking Jerry Jeudy in the 5th round over Courtland Sutton in the 3rd round every single day of the week. I like Jeudy. Actually, Walter's Jeudy projected just a little bit ahead of Courtland Sutton this season right now. But yeah, Sutton in the mid late 3rd round, like that is a little early. But the upside is justified. Like, he could be a top 5 receiver in fantasy. Both guys could be. Sutton and Jeudy, they both have top 5 fantasy upside. I made a video who's most likely to be Cooper Kupp this season. There's not going to be another Cooper Kupp this season, but if there is, I think Jeudy and Sutton have a pretty good case for being that, getting a huge upgrade, just like Cooper Kupp experienced last year. All right, I'm back on the clock. I'm actually going to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire with this pick. He's falling so far in drafts, and he's almost outside the top 100 picks in fantasy drafts. So before you make that face at me for drafting Clyde, and I see some of you making that face, he's going in the 8th, the 9th, the 10th round. We've already drafted our entire starting lineup. And now we're on the clock, and a guy that was picked in the first 3 rounds of fantasy drafts the last 2 years is now going in the 8th, 9th round. He is practicing. He wasn't the pup list for a day, but apparently that was just a conditioning test. Still not great, but he is practicing. And he arguably has one of the least competition in the league in terms of, if you just look at the running back depth charts. And, like, sure, you could make a case. Jerick McKinnon, he was big in the playoffs last year at 300 yards, over 300 yards in the last 3 games down the stretch for the Chiefs. But he's also 30 years old and really has never been a bell cow back, Jerick McKinnon, except for like that one short stint in Minnesota like 5 years ago. And then Ronald Jones, who signed a 1-year, basically no money guaranteed contract, who has shown zero ability to catch passes. And he maybe is a better runner than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or close to as good of a runner as Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But he's by no means great. I think Clyde's going to lead this backfield in touches. An offense that no longer has Tyreek Hill. There's a clear path to targets for him this season, and he's going 7 rounds later than he did last year. This feels very similar to what we're seeing with Saquon and what we're seeing with Michael Thomas, where people have a very sour taste in their mouth about Clyde. If anyone in your league has had Clyde the last 2 years, they probably just will not draft him ever again. So I'm happy to get Clyde 8th, 9th round, and he's going to start sliding to the 9th round. He's going to start sliding outside the top 100 picks, and I'm definitely going to be taking him there. Because again, you got to look at the risk reward scenario. Is the risk that he is a complete bust for the 3rd straight year? Yeah, that's definitely a pretty big risk. But what's the reward? A running back on a top 5 offense that you got in the 9th round? Like, you got to factor in the cost, obviously, as well. How do you feel about Etienne now? I have him with 15th round keeper value. Yeah, I feel worse about him. after the James Robinson and news about him like trending towards James Robinson is not just trending towards week 1. James Robinson's trending towards like getting in full training camp practices. He's way ahead of schedule. He is on the Cam Akers timeline right now. And that is a bad sign, obviously, for Travis Etienne in fantasy. It's going to impact Travis Etienne's workload. But I'm still bullish on him being a really good receiver and him still having a huge receiving role in this offense. So I might not take him in the 3rd round in season-long drafts, but 4th round, I'm 100% considering Travis Etienne. And if you can keep him in the 15th round, you should do that. I think it's going to be hard to find a guy on your team that's going in the 4th round that you can keep in the 15th round. So yeah, I'm definitely happy with those. If you guys are watching live on YouTube, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, make sure you hit that follow button as well. Saquon or Aaron Jones, that one's super close. I actually went Aaron Jones over Saquon Barkley in the draft I'm doing right now, live on TikTok, live on YouTube. You can actually see the full draft board, by the way, a little bit clearer on YouTube. It's a little bit worse on TikTok because I still can't live stream from my computer. So I have to do this makeshift a screen share on TikTok, which I don't even know if you guys can see the players being drafted. Let me know if you can. Yeah, the case for Clyde in 8th is definitely there. All right, I'm back on the clock. I'm gonna actually. Wow, Russell Gage is really sliding. Like I think you got to start considering Russell Gage at this point. 20 picks past where his ADP was. I am gonna go Kareem Hunt because I need running backs on this team, and I do like the upside of Kareem Hunt. I think like you're looking at guys. The archetype of running back that I'm trying to go after in fantasy in the mid-late rounds, like we're in the 9th round now of this draft. So far, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, Kyler Murray, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Rashad Bateman, and Drake London. Haven't taken a tight end yet because that's the least exciting position in fantasy. And nobody has slid to a place that I like yet. I will have to take 3 tight ends in this draft. But Kareem Hunt falls into the archetype that I want in my mid to late round running backs, like outside of the top 3 round running backs. I want guys that have standalone PPR, point per reception value. They can catch passes each week. They can clear 10 points pretty consistently, even though they're not the top running back on their team. These are guys like A.J. Dillon. These guys like Tony Pollard and Kareem Hunt definitely fills that role as well. All 3 guys also would go absolutely nuclear if the top guy gets hurt. If Nick Chubb gets hurt, Kareem Hunt is all of a sudden a top 12 running back in fantasy. Yikes. Sorry about that, TikTok Live. We're going to turn this around. Hopefully we're not about to be on the clock. How do I... I don't know why. Let me just restart the live. Let's do that. We're not about to be on the clock. YouTube Live, we're chilling. TikTok Live just went for a whole roller coaster of a ride. All right, we're going to start this live again. We're not going to try to flip camera this time. We're up in 2 picks, just in time. Are DK and Sutton good starting wide receivers? I don't feel great about DK Metcalf in season-long leagues. Like he's a guy that like he sure is going to slide a lot, but in season-long leagues, I think it's going to be hard to predict the weeks DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are going to perform because it's going to be a very run-first team with a horrible offensive line, with a horrible quarterback, and also with a horrible defense. I just think this team's going to really struggle to sustain drives. I don't feel great about DK Metcalf as a starting receiver for me. Like I would honestly prefer Rashad Bateman over DK Metcalf, and I'm pretty sure DK Metcalf's getting taken ahead of him in every single draft, especially in season-long leagues where predictable performances are more important. We're back, TikTok, by the way. All right, we're on the clock. Dawson Knox is sliding about 10 picks after ADP. I'm pretty happy getting Dawson Knox this late. I'm not a huge Dawson Knox guy, but I'm happy to get pieces of the Bills offense in the 10th round or later. Starting pieces of the Bills offense in the 10th round or later. You can sign me up for that. The Bills are likely going to lead the league in points scored this season. They're the favorites to lead the league in scoring. And Dawson Knox, I think I just got as the 9th tight end off the board in the 10th round. So I do feel pretty good. Feel pretty good about that. Honestly, I feel pretty good about how this team is coming together overall. I made a couple tough choices early. I took Rashad Bateman over Juju, over Darnell Mooney. I took Drake London over Antonio Gibson, but I ended up getting Clyde, Kareem Hunt 2 rounds later. I sort of like the trade-off I made there as well. Drake London likely to see the most targets of any rookie wide receiver. I'm starting to warm up, by the way, to all the rookie wide receivers taken in the first round. There's going to be rookie wide receivers that were taken in the first round that absolutely smash in fantasy. There's also going to be ones that are complete duds. But Drake London has the easiest competition of them all. It's him and Kyle Pitts, and that's literally the end of the list for the Falcons receiving options. What are your thoughts on drafting teammates / what position combinations you target avoid when doing so? Yeah, I like this question a lot. I think this is a good question to ask. And really the best stack that you can get is quarterback wide receiver. Like quarterback wide receiver, if I got Lamar on this team, Lamar's obviously not the quarterback you need to be stacking. Like you don't need to stack Lamar because of his rushing ability. But I want quarterback wide receiver stacks, quarterback tight end stacks. If you're going for stacking with a running back, it's got to be pass catching running back. Like Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, I don't hate that stack at all. Thoughts on Rashad Penny with Carson retiring? Yeah, Rashad Penny, has he been picked yet in this draft? He must have been. Yeah, he went in the 8th round. And Rashad Penny and Kenneth Walker have really high ceilings, even though the Seahawks are going to be bad. I actually have a bet that the Seahawks won't win a single game this season. They will win a game, but it was I think $50 to win $2,000 that I bet on that. But the Seahawks offensive line is really, really bad. I'm going to go with Michael Gallup with this pick. I'm starting to warm up to Michael Gallup at his ADP. We actually got a positive report about Michael Gallup today, even though he isn't playing at training camp, which we didn't expect him to play. Michael Gallup has hit every single milestone that you want him to hit in his recovery. I don't think he's missing more than a month of the season. And when he comes back, he's going to be the number 2 receiver on what could be a top 5 passing offense. So yeah, I do like Michael Gallup a lot. I just got him in the 11th round of this draft. But yeah, so I like stacking the pass catching running backs with quarterbacks too. I don't like stacking wide receivers with wide receivers or wide receivers with running backs, especially in season-long leagues. In best ball leagues, I think there's a better case to stack 2 wide receivers together because you're sort of starting everyone every week. And if you have 2 receivers on the same team, you increase your overall probability of one of them scoring a touchdown because they're eating out of the same pie, if that makes sense. But in season-long leagues, you're going to have to guess which guy is going to score the touchdown that week, and that never goes well. So I don't really like stacking the same wide receivers together unless you're looking at some of the really, really elite pairings. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin come to mind. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like if you can stack both those guys with Joe Burrow, you're going to put up some absolutely monster weeks because both guys can be wide receiver ones in a given week. But most wide receiver duos don't have that potential. Most offenses just aren't like that. Those are the only times, though, I would draft the same wide receiver, the same team, like really those top guys. Otherwise, I'm pretty much actively trying to avoid that type of stack. We're going to be back on the clock in 6 picks. I do need 2 more tight ends in this draft. Generally speaking, I've been waiting pretty late in targeting these guys late in drafts. I'm starting to really like David Njoku at his cost. The reports out of Cleveland camp is he's going to be an every down player for the Browns. And there's a pretty good story to tell that he's going to be their number 2 receiver after Amari Cooper. David Bell, their rookie wide receiver, he's been dealing with injuries. There's a chance that Njoku is a top 3 pass catching player for the Browns this season. And at a bleak tight end position, Njoku, people forget, Njoku was a very, very good prospect coming out of college. And he has actually shown really good efficiency in the NFL. He's only 26 years old. And we see tight ends oftentimes break out late in their career. He's heading into his 6th season. Njoku had a lot of good efficiency metrics last year. He was 5th in yards per target. He was 4th in yards per reception. He showed efficiency, and he's going to get more volume this year. And he's going really, really late. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett's probably going to be throwing the ball for the bulk of the season, so that's not great. But I still think Njoku, volume-wise, makes a lot of sense. I'm back on the clock. Justin Fields is still available. I do really like the Justin Fields, Kyler Murray double stack. But Jacoby Myers is there too. I really like the potential there. I'm going to go with Justin Fields, though. I like getting the double quarterback rushing stack. And I do the last thing I'll say about stacking in best ball, I do think looking at the week 17, 16, 15 schedules and stacking players that are playing against each other in those weeks makes a lot of sense, because those are the weeks that you're advancing into the potentially get the $2 million prize. So you do want to look ahead to week 17, 16, 15. Like if we look ahead right now, the Cardinals are playing the Falcons in week 17. They're playing the Buccaneers in week 16, and they're playing the Broncos in week 15. So like there's a case for me to draft guys on all those teams. The Bears, I'm also pretty sure I might already have a week 17 stack with the Bears. The Chicago Bears play the Lions in week 17. That should be a pretty good matchup for Justin Fields. They play the Bills. We already got Dawson Knox, so we already stacked Justin Fields and Dawson Knox in week 16. And they also play the Eagles. I don't think I have any Eagles players yet. So not doing a great week 17 example stack right now, but I do think that's worth looking at when doing these best ball drafts. How are you feeling about Juju this season? I'm in on Juju. Why draft now? Because this is a best ball draft. And I have very high stakes drafts coming up in actually my first draft's in next weekend. So like less than almost exactly a week away, like 8 days away. But I have a lot of high stakes drafts at the end of August as well. And this is my batting practice for those drafts. This is the best way for me to prepare for my season long drafts, because there's real money on the line in these drafts. These aren't just mock drafts. I'm getting real insight, live insight into positional player value in these drafts. And this is like sharp drafting that I get to experience. And this is the batting practice I need for my real season-long high-stakes drafts. And there's no in-season management with the best ball drafts either. So I'm just doing the draft, and then I never have to do anything again. What's the best pick for 10-man PPR? Yes, I got to make a video about this. I don't want to make a video about this, but I think I'm going to because I don't feel really strongly about what pick is best. And this is a question I feel like I've seen every live stream, the past few lives. I want the second overall pick because I want CMC. Maybe I'll just make the video about that, make it a best pick video, but really a CMC video about why I want the second overall pick so I can get Christian McCaffrey and then win all of my fantasy leagues. But no, I like the second overall pick. I like the third overall pick if you think CMC is going to slide to the third overall pick. I like the fourth overall pick a lot too, because you're going to get one of Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, CMC. I absolutely love all four of those guys. And if I don't get one of the top four picks, I really think I want to be towards the end, because I'm going to get two really good running backs towards the end. You're going to get Dalvin Cook or Aaron Jones or Saquon Barkley or Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift. Like all these guys are going to be available back end, the first, beginning of the second round. So I like the back end of the draft too. All right, I'm going to take Njoku well ahead of ADP here. After talking about why I'm bullish on him, I don't even think I need to explain that. But I'm happy to be 13 picks ahead of ADP on David Njoku, who I think is actually a pretty clear tier ahead of the guys, the tight ends that are left, even over Hunter Henry. Sam, by any chance, are you Jewish? It's a very random question, but you are actually on the money with that one. Do you prefer Burks or London for this year? I'm been on London over Burks really since the draft. And actually, most people had Burks over London right when the draft ended. I actually posted a YouTube video about my top 10 rookies for fantasy. And I had Drake London ranked number one in that, because you look at the target competition in Atlanta. I know there's concerns about Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. I have those same concerns. But if we're just looking at target volume, I mean, Drake London's locked into pretty clear target volume, where I think Robert Woods could really eat into Treylon Burks' production. But both guys have the potential to be number one overall. Actually, when I originally started talking about these rookie wide receivers, I confidently said, and I still think this is the case, by the way, that any of the top five could be the number one overall wide receiver. It could be Garrett Wilson. It could be Treylon Burks. It can definitely be Drake London. Jameson Williams would be in that conversation if he wasn't trending towards missing the first month of the season. I actually think Jahan Dotson, like he's definitely not potential to be number one overall, but he's certainly in the conversation. And I think he's sort of being slept on. He was picked in the first round. I think I'm missing one receiver there, I feel like, in the first round. Who was it? Maybe not. Oh, I am. It was Chris Olave. Yeah, Chris Olave absolutely has a chance to do it too. How did I forget Chris Olave? I'm very high on Chris Olave. Yeah, Olave. You're missing Olave. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, TikTok Live. Thank you, YouTube Live. You guys are always on it. Yeah, it's Olave. Yeah, all five of those guys I'm not including Jahan Dotson in that list, but I do think he's going like 18th round, like pretty late. He's going pretty late. I think he might have already. He's literally 140th pick in fantasy, well behind I think everyone else we mentioned. Maybe not Jameson Williams because of the injury, but yeah, Olave, Burks, London, and Wilson all have a shot to be the number one rookie receiver. Wilson, I would put a tier below the rest of the guys though, because I think he's least likely to beat out Elijah Moore. I also think now with Michael Thomas back looking healthy, Olave is dinged a little bit too. So it is probably between Burks and London. But I also wouldn't sleep on Jameson Williams either. I think Jameson Williams, when he does start playing, could be the number one rookie wide receiver. All of them were exceptional college players. I'm going to go with Devontae Parker with this next pick, who I think he's already getting some praise in training camp, literally the first days of training camp, but he's going to be a starting receiver for the Pats. They didn't trade for him not to be a starting receiver for the Pats. And I'm also pretty confident in saying that the Patriots have a bottom 10 talented receiving group in the league, just top to bottom. So there's a path to Devontae Parker scoring a decent amount of touchdowns for the Patriots this season. And I'm also pretty bullish on the year 2 Mac Jones leap. I'm not going to be drafting very much Mac Jones in fantasy because it's going to be a run first team. And he is not going to run the ball ever. And that's what I want in fantasy. So I actually prefer like Marcus Mariota in the last round over Mac Jones in fantasy. But I do think he can take a year 2 leap in efficiency in real football. And that's going to help Devontae Parker. It's going to help the entire passing attack. Devontae Parker just has to stay healthy. But by all reports right now, he is healthy. How do you like Michael Thomas? Yeah, I'm in on Michael Thomas now. I said all offseason. I've been very transparent about my take on Michael Thomas all offseason. I just need to see him practice. I just wanted to see Michael Thomas practice. Once I see him practice, I'm back in on Michael Thomas. I'm not going to sleep on the Slant King, who had some of the best fantasy wide receiver seasons of all time with Drew Brees, and he's not playing with Drew Brees now. He has more target competition now, but he's still probably wide receiver 2 in fantasy at worst. And you're getting him right now. He got picked in the 6th round in this draft. Like he was the 3rd receiver taken by that team. I like that. If he can be my wide receiver 3 in fantasy, I'm going to feel pretty good about that. And he's practicing. Michael Thomas is going to be playing week 1, guys. He's healthy. And as soon as that stops happening, I'll definitely stop drafting Michael Thomas. But until then, yeah, sign me up for Michael Thomas. Why Dynasty Mac Jones or over Marcus? No. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking Mac Jones over Mariota in Dynasty. It's not even close. Honestly, Mac Jones is going to outscore Mariota this season anyway. That's probably a bad example. But they're going like 6 rounds apart. Mac Jones just got drafted. Mariota might not get drafted, literally in 18 rounds. And he's probably not going to start the whole season either. Desmond Ridder will likely take over at some point this season, which is why Mariota is a slightly risky best ball pick, because you want to know your best ball players without injury are going to play the whole season. That might not be the case with Mariota, though I'm very confident that Mariota will start week 1. What app do you use for alerts? I mostly honestly use Twitter. Follow us on Twitter, by the way, at Walterpicks app. But yeah, Twitter is where I honestly get most of my alerts. Honestly, the other best place to get alerts is our Discord, which you can find in our link tree on TikTok, also in the link description in YouTube. I find out from almost all NFL news at this point through our Discord and through our company Slack. Like everyone is just on the news constantly. So I don't even need a notifications app. I just get the notifications straight through Discord, straight through Slack. So that's sort of been my experience with NFL news over the last really 2 years. Like our 32 creators are in the Discord. Our 32 TikTok creators are also all in Slack together. And I mean, the news is just like, you don't need to go looking for it. The news is just going to find you at that point. So definitely join our Discord. Judy or Sutton? I have Judy a little bit ahead of Sutton, and they actually went 2 full rounds apart in the draft I'm doing live right now behind me. Let me scroll ahead so you guys can see this draft live if you're watching the screen behind me. Sorry, I've been doing a bad job of keeping that live up to date. But Judy went, I think, like 5th round in this draft, and Sutton went 3rd round. And I like, if you're talking about who I like more at the cost, I mean, it's definitely Judy at cost, if that's going to be the difference when they're drafted. But I've seen more commonly, they're both going like early 4th round. And I feel a little bit better about Judy's ceiling than Sutton's ceiling, but both have a really, really high ceiling. I'm also a little nervous about both floors, though, right? Like you got to be a little nervous about both floors. I think one of the guys is going to way overperform, and one will probably end up underperforming slightly. But I'm also very bullish on Russell Wilson. I think more so than most people. I think Russell Wilson has been more efficient than people can wrap their head around. He's had an over 6% touchdown rate in 5 straight years. That's over double league average, almost double league average in 5 consecutive years in touchdown efficiency on a run first team. He's obviously had really good receivers. I agree, and I would argue that DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are better than Judy and Sutton. So that's not good for Russell Wilson. But also, I would argue, almost definitely getting an upgrade in coaching staff, almost definitely getting an upgrade in scheme. And there's no way the Broncos can be as much of a run-heavy team as the Seahawks have been over the last 3 years. And they probably will skew run-heavy still. But yeah, I'm in on both guys. But I'm prepared for one of them to flop and one of them to absolutely smash. But in the 4th round, I will be considering both guys. But certainly if there's a 2-round difference, I want the guy going 2 rounds later because they're really close. If you have 1.1 in a 12-person league, are you taking 3 backs? I'm assuming you mean first pick. Are we drafting Travis Etienne? Yeah, I'm drafting Travis Etienne, like fourth round, 12-person leagues. I think I'm on the clock. Oh, God. I have 6 seconds. We got to go quick here. I got really carried away there. We're going to snag Paris Campbell very quickly in recovery mode. We do need one more running back on this team. Well, let's look at one of these 2 guys with our next pick. Little hedge against Clyde. I have been drafting a decent amount of Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones just to hedge against Clyde because I've drafted so much Clyde Edwards-Helaire this offseason. If you have the first pick, you're taking Jonathan Taylor. In my opinion, he's the safest player. I think you should consider CMC, but you should take Jonathan Taylor first overall. You don't need to go 3 straight running backs, though. But it depends who's there left when it's back around. Like in the draft I'm doing now, if you're watching live on YouTube, you can see the full draft board. You can only see part of the draft board behind me if you're watching live on TikTok. But the person who went first overall, like running backs that were still on the board at that time, Nick Chubb, I would gladly take Nick Chubb in that spot. Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, I've seen slide that far. Any of those running backs slide that far, I would take all of them with the first overall pick because there's a big tier drop-off, in my opinion, after Nick Chubb. We got to wait and see about the Alvin Kamara suspension, but I would put him on that list too if he isn't suspended. But then, I think you go wide receiver. And honestly, I don't hate considering Josh Allen with one of those picks too because there's a good chance he would still be there. I also really like going with A.J. Brown, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins in that spot as well. DJ Moore's also, I think, a really safe bet this season. I don't feel great about stacking Michael Pittman with Jonathan Taylor, though. I do like Michael Pittman more than all those receivers I just mentioned, but I don't like stacking with Jonathan Taylor. So if you have JT, I don't think I would take him. That was a very, very good save with me drafting Paris Campbell very quickly, trying to – I need one more running back and then I think one more receiver on this team to get to my ideal 2-5-8-3 roster composition. Isaiah McKenzie, by the way, looking like he is competing for that slot role with Jameson Lee Crowder. And Jameson Lee Crowder, starting off his Bills tenure pretty bad, not practicing due to some sort of injury. I don't think we've gotten details on what the actual injury is for Jameson Lee Crowder, but it sounds like Isaiah McKenzie shining in his absence. Mariota might not be too bad. Yeah, I agreed. What do you think Penny's worth of as of now? Dynasty. I think he's a pretty strong dynasty asset. Without the injury risk, obviously, I think Rashad Penny arguably is the highest injury risk of all running backs based on how he started his career in the NFL. But he is healthy at the moment, and he was the most efficient running back in the NFL in the last 5 weeks of the season. I'm going to go with Isaiah McKenzie actually with this last pick, and Chris Evans and Jerick McKinnon did get taken, so I will have to go one more running back on this team. Definitely glad I started this draft Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, by the way, because I really didn't draft very many running backs on this squad. We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel at the running back position late in this draft. I'll probably be looking at these 3 guys. Kenyon Drake, I'm pretty sure he was cleared to start camp. Drake ankle has received medical clearance. That is a very good sign. I'll definitely consider him because I'm pretty sure Zamir White isn't practicing. Yeah, that is the case. So Kenyon Drake definitely in the lead for that number 2 running back role behind Josh Jacobs right now. And we also know Josh McDaniels, like he will run a multiple running back scheme. He's going to take parts of that Patriots philosophy with him to Las Vegas. Chris Evans, a sleeper. Yeah, Chris Evans is a really deep sleeper. He just went in the 17th round in this draft. I was going to take him in this round if he was still there. And yeah, I think he's going to be the 3rd down back for the Bengals over Samaje Perine this season. That's why I'm also not super bullish on Joe Mixon because it sounds like he's not going to play all the 3rd downs. He could have a Jonathan Taylor-like season. Like he has that in him. He's a very talented runner, running behind a better offensive line this year in a really good offense. He could hit. But I don't like drafting guys in the first round, running backs in the first round that aren't going to be playing 3rd downs, don't have the receiving upside. Like I want guys that can smash in PPR leagues. I want guys that can catch 5 catches in a game. I think that is the prototype of league-winning running backs. Generally speaking, JT wasn't that last year, and he still was the number 1 overall running back Derrick Henry was for a while too, and he wasn't catching very many passes. But I do think Chris Evans is going to steal that third down role for the Bengals. What's your ideal roster composition for a regular draft? This is a really good question. I'll probably make a video on this also. But I think generally speaking, like I'm more than willing to fluctuate in roster composition in season-long leagues. And like as I get later and later in drafts in season-long leagues, I'm just solely thinking about upside for players. I don't care about the floor case for anyone as I get late in drafts. So like if there's running backs that have extremely high ceilings, like for example, James Robinson, really late in the draft. Like, yeah, he's coming off an Achilles injury, but also if he's fully healthy, he could be a workhorse running back in the NFL. So I'm willing to like take dart throws on guys like him. But I probably will have more receivers than running backs on most teams. Usually there's guys deep into drafts, receivers that have more upside than like the really, really deep running backs. But yeah, you want at least, like if you're starting 2 running backs every week, you want at least 4 running backs, probably 5. And like same thing with the receivers. If you're starting 3, that you probably want at least 6 receivers. I wouldn't draft usually more than 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, just generally speaking. In a normal season-long league where you're only starting 1 QB and you're only starting 1 tight end, I'm almost always only drafting 1 QB and 1 tight end. Because you can just add those guys later on the waiver wire for the bye week or for injury. Like I'm not going to invest in the onesie positions very, very much. All right, we're back on the clock. Is Kenyon Drake still there? Zamir White got picked before Kenyon Drake, and he's the one that's hurt. I kind of like that. I kind of like the last round pick Kenyon Drake pick that I just made in this $25 best ball draft. I kind of like how this team turned out, guys. I'm not going to lie. This might be one of my favorite teams. I don't think I have very much week 17 stacking going on in this draft that might come back to haunt me. But I finished strong with 5 running backs. I got Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, and Kenyon Drake. He came with my last overall pick. Then at receiver, feeling pretty good about the receiver position. T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Rashad Bateman, Drake London, Michael Gallup, Devontae Parker, Paris Campbell, and Isaiah McKenzie. Paris Campbell, Isaiah McKenzie, 2 of my favorite late round receivers right now. I mean, McKenzie right now is the starting slot receiver for the Bills as of today. And then I got 3 tight ends, Dawson Knox, David Njoku, and Evan Ingram. And my 2 quarterbacks are Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, 2 guys that can absolutely run the ball. Feel pretty good about this team. I think this team's got a shot. Let me know in the comments what you think. I will be wrapping up the YouTube live in just a moment. This is a $25 league. But I have the potential to win $2 million in this league. There's over hundreds of thousands of leagues, and the winner of each league plays each other in week 15, and the winner of those leagues play each other in week 16, and the winner of those leagues play each other in week 17 for the $2 million prize. So I got a very big shot at a lot of money in this draft. What do you think Rashad Penny's value is? Yeah, I think Rashad Penny, like I said, like as long as he stays healthy, he's going to return value, I think, in fantasy with where he's getting drafted. In Dynasty, that's the case as well, though I do have a lot of injury concerns with Rashad Penny. This is the one, Sam. I'm feeling it. I feel this one, too. I did get a Patriots player on there, too. I always feel good about that because, like, I think ahead to if any of these teams actually do make it to let me stop sharing this screen as well. If any of these top teams do make it to these final rounds of this best ball tournament, and I'm competing for $2 million prizes, I'm going to be pretty happy when one of the Patriots players is on there trying to win me $2 million. So hopefully Devontae Parker can be that guy for this team. But I've been taking Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker pretty late in drafts. I think both guys are pretty fair at their cost. I also really like Mondre like in the middle rounds. I think he fits the Kareem Hunt, AJ Dillon, Tony Pollard prototype where he's going to catch passes. He has standalone PPR value. And then if Damian Harris gets hurt, or if he just gets so much better that a Bill just puts Damian Harris a little bit to the side, like if he can just eat into a little bit more of Damian Harris's role, I mean, Mondre could really crush fantasy leagues. And I also think people overestimate the Patriots, like how they treat running backs. It's so overblown. I think in fantasy, people are always like, oh, don't draft Patriots running backs because you can never predict which Patriots running back is going to be good in fantasy. It's always a rotation. That's just actually hasn't been the case like forever. And usually there actually is one guy in that backfield, partially for those reasons, that ends up being really, really good in fantasy. And like Ramondre Stevenson is frequently available in the 8th, 9th, 10th, even 11th round of drafts. Like he's going really late. He's behind Devin Singletary. He's behind Chase Edmonds. He's behind Kareem Hunt. He's behind, well behind Damian Harris. I think he is a really exciting guy. And there was actually reports today, I'm pretty sure, that Sam, man, what's going on? Fantasy Football AZ, good to see you in the live. Hope things are good, man. Does it feel to you? It feels to me like this is the real first day of the season. We got training camp footage coming across the Twitter feed and real practices happening. And Michael Thomas is partaking in them. How are you feeling about Michael Thomas this year in fantasy? I'm definitely interested to hear your take on him. Top guys in auction drafts. My general auction draft strategy is like I'm comfortable paying up for like the elite running backs. I want to get like, yeah, it really does. Michael Thomas called out the fantasy. Yeah, I did see that he called the fantasy docs out. I've been saying all offseason, like I just need to see Michael Thomas practice, and then I'll be in on him. And until he practices, I'm out. And then once he's practicing, I'm in. And this is just going to be my toggle for Michael Thomas for his whole career, rest of his career now. If he's practicing, like I'm in on Michael Thomas. I doubt he plays more than 13 games. You're probably right. You're probably right, Max. And it probably like I do think the best comp for Michael Thomas is Ben Simmons. It feels to me like he's the Ben Simmons of the NFL, but hey, at least he's practicing, I guess. Should I start DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, or Chase Claypool? Where I love that people are already asking start-sit questions. I assume this is a draft question, though, not a start-sit question. I would probably rank those guys in that order, but the first two are definitely well ahead of Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, and Cortland Sutton. I do actually like Chase Claypool at his cost, though, this season. All right, we're wrapping up the YouTube Live. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the YouTube Live. I'll be finishing up the TikTok Live in like 2 minutes, but I'll try to get to as many comments as I can before that. I'll be back live, as you guys know, next week doing another one of these drafts. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you do like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Have a good one, guys.